renge kyo nam. Myoho renge kyo nam. Myoho renge kyo.
Okay, looks like finally got this thing recording. Equipment. I am trying my best. I would like to do a video a day, at very least 1 or 2 videos a week. But my equipment is old. I'm producing all of this on an old laptop I used when I was in an IT position. And it was a laptop purchased in the mid or late 90s. So, and it was never meant as a video editing platform, certainly. But it's been good to me, so I'm using it as well as I can. And the equipment that I have, your contributions, your financial support, what I need to get a more current computer so I can do more of these videos reliably and in a reasonable amount of time. You may not realize that using my current equipment, it takes me a full day just to process a simple video. I just don't have the horsepower. Excuse me. Anyway, that's not what this video is about. So, continuing with our opening of the Eyes Go show, we're now entering a portion of this Go show where Nichiren, you've heard him do this before, and I don't want to take away any of its depth here, because in this Go show he really goes into depth on what's been going on in the various schools, certainly of his day, but even in the past, and how the Lotus Sutra, which is the ultimate teachings of the latter period, the late period, the final period of Shakyamuni's teachings, is still misrepresented in other schools. So, I've already read, we ended the last video on the first pronouncement of the Buddha, that the whole reason of the advent of the Lotus and the teachings and his own position as Lord Shakyamuni, founder of Buddhism, teacher, is to, and I'll say it again, he is looking for someone amongst the population, in this case the very well described gathering of those at this ceremony in the sky of the Lotus Sutra, which by now you know represents all of us in our different mental states as personages, as bodhisattvas of learning, of realization, of all these different worlds. This is you and me. That he's looking for those of us who can take this ultimate teaching of the Lotus and bequeath it to us for spreading, for teaching others, for enabling all others to attain enlightenment. So, again, the chapter reads, Nichiren continues, "At the time, the world-honored one, wishing to state his meaning once more, spoke in verse form, saying, 'This holy Lord, this honored one, though he passed into extinction long ago, still seats himself in the treasure tower, coming here for the sake of the law. You people, why then do you not also strive for the sake of the law? In addition, these emanations of my body,'" here it is again, "these emanations of my body," these aren't science or CGI light rays that embody themselves in another human being. He's talking about these personages, these mental conjurings of different types of awareness, different types of you and me, different types of perception, right? And although he gives them Buddha Tahoe, Buddha Amida, Buddha, all these other names, or Bodhisattva so-and-so and Bodhisattva so-and-so, he's talking about our potential mind states, and he's addressing all of them as emanations of himself. Who is himself? The Buddha mind, which we already have. But at this point of the Lotus, he's still talking to people who haven't gotten that critical point. And as Nichiren has pointed out already, that in the lifespan of the Tathagata chapter, this is when the bomb is like securely dropped, that look, Buddha, was not born in my lifetime. Buddha is a mind state you all have and has always been here. You simply need to cut away all these veils of delusion so that you can clearly see within yourself your Buddha mind, the Buddha mind. All right. Buddhas in immeasurable numbers, like Ganges sands, humans, have come desiring to hear the law. We all want to attain clarity. Each has abandoned his wonderful land, as well as his hosts of disciples, the heavenly and human beings, dragons and spirits, and all the offerings they gave him, and has come to this place on purpose to make certain the law will long endure. So these are all our struggles, our foibles, the things that are obstacles, make us miserable, emotional sufferings, right? But they take form in these mental exercises as dragons, spirits, human beings, heavenly beings, joy, blah, 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 blah. As though a great wind were tossing the branches of small trees. Through this expedient means, they make certain that the law will long endure. So, I say to the great assembly, after I have passed into extinction, who can guard and uphold, read and recite this sutra? Now, in the presence of the Buddha, let him come forward and speak his vow. This is the second proclamation of Buddha. The passage continues, quote, "The thus come one many treasures, I myself, and these emanation Buddhas who have gathered here, surely know this is our aim. All you good men, each of you must consider carefully. This is a difficult matter. It is proper you should make a great vow. The other sutras number as many as Ganges sands, but though you expound those sutras, that is not worth regarding as difficult." So this is pointing to our study. The point of our practice, even though it involves a great deal of study, as many as the Ganges sands, as compared to being a propagator of this teaching, that is not difficult. And not just propagating it, but in order to propagate it, embody it. Embody your Buddha mind. Attain that. And then preach it. Bodhisattva. Help others attain. That is a far greater task than simply enlightening yourself, studying for yourself. If you were to seize Mount Sumero and fling it far off into measureless Buddha lands, that too would not be difficult in comparison. But if after the Buddha has entered extinction, in the time of evil, you can preach this sutra, that will be difficult indeed. In other words, while he, the founder, the original teacher, the discoverer, the enlightened one in his life, the first to really, with clarity, completely embrace the Buddha mind. While he's here, lots of people will have doubts, and much study will be required by everyone he speaks to in order to attain or approach his level of understanding of reality, the human, all life. But when he's gone, after he passes away, the human that represents all this, that embodies this, that teaches this is gone, then it's all on us. That is going to be difficult, especially since surrounding us will be a world of influences, negative influences, impediments, and poor influences. The world of evil, the world we live in today, full of greed, anger, and stupidity, pronounced by the Buddha himself to come. We're in it. So for us to do what we're doing right now, is far more difficult than to simply sit and study and discover this just for ourselves. To share this, to be the Sangha, to be in the midst of our own enlightenment while assisting and helping others in the process. It's super symbiotic. And this is the whole point of the ultimate teachings of Buddhism, is that this isn't a loner kind of thing. This isn't the old description of a monk alone in a cave coming to enlightenment, the samurai going off into the hills into a cave to achieve Satori. That's all well and good, but it's not fully enlightened. It's not fully releasing yourself from the sufferings of life. Only by bringing others to that same place are you truly expanding your understanding and clarity of life itself, let alone your own. Okay? It's funny. That's a truly selfless existence. All right. If when the fires come at the end of the kalpa, one can load dry grass on his back and enter the fire without being burned, that would not be difficult. But after I have passed into extinction, if one can embrace this sutra and expound it to even one person, that will be difficult indeed. All you good men, after I have entered extinction, who can accept and uphold, read and recite this sutra, now in the presence of the Buddha, let him come forward and speak his vow. This is the third admonition from the Buddha. The fourth and fifth admonitions are found in the Devadatta chapter, and I will deal with them later, so we have more to go, but he's just wanting to deal with these first three. The meaning of these passages from the sutra is right before our eyes, obvious as the sun suspended in the blue sky or a mole on a white face. And yet, the blind ones, those with perverse eyes, the one-eyed, those who believe no one but their own teachers, and those who cling to biased views, cannot see it. For those who earnestly seek the way, in spite of all difficulties, I will try to demonstrate what these passages mean. But they must understand that the truth is more rarely met with than the preachers, or let me start. But they must understand that the truth is more rarely met with than the peaches of immortality that grow in the garden of the Queen Mother of the West, or the Udambara flower that blooms only when a wheel-turning king appears. In less poetic terms, if you look up Udambara flower, it's a mythical flower that some say they found actual evidence of, so it may be based on an actual flower. But the bloom only happens, and it depends on where you read this, either every 500, 1,000, or even 5,000 years. So this flower does not bloom often, therefore the rarity, right? Moreover, the conflict between Nichiren and the various schools surpasses the 8 years of warfare when the governor of Pei and Siyu battled for the empire of China, the 7 years when Yoritomo and the Munemori fought for the islands of Japan, the struggles between Shakra and the Asuras, or between the Dragon King and the Garuda birds at the Anvatapta lake. The truth of the Lotus Sutra has made its appearance twice in this country of Japan. You should understand that it appeared once with the great teacher Dengyo, this is long before Nichiren, and hundreds of years, and again with Nichiren. But the sightless ones doubt this. It is beyond my power to convince them. Shakyamuni Buddha, Many Treasures Buddha, and the Buddhas of the 10 directions gathered together and judged the relative merits of all the sutras of Japan, China, India, the palace of the Dragon King, the heavens, and the other worlds of the 10 directions, and in this sutra they chose. Question. Here we go, question and answer. Do sutras such as the Flower Garland, the sutras of the correct and equal period, wisdom, profound secrets, Langavatara, Mahavarachana, and Nirvana belong to the 9 easy acts group or the 6 difficult acts group? Throughout the history of Buddhism, there have been counted leaders of different sects who have proposed, and even Tendai referred to some of these categorizations when he was trying to get the canons in the correct order and all of the sutra in the correct order. Things like the 9 easy acts, the 6 difficult acts groups. I'll leave that for you to research, because I will never get through this Go Show if I go through every single thing, but just know what that's about. There's actually a footnote in the writings about this. Nichiren answers, Tutshun, Chi-Yin, Fa-Tsang, and Cheng Quan of the Flower Garland School, who were all masters of the 3 divisions of the canon, state that both the Flower Garland Sutra and the Lotus Sutra belong to the 6 difficult acts category. Though in name they are 2 different sutras, they are identical in their teachings and principles. It is similar to the statement, though the 4 perceptions of reality are separate, the truth they point to is identical, end quote. And I just want to clarify, I know I do this a lot, but I want to clarify for you, the Flower Garland Sutra, the Avatamsaka Sutra, the first, or the Kigan Sutra in Japanese, is identified as the first preaching of Shakyamuni Buddha when he came to his realization under the Bodhi tree. So some of you may be concerned or familiar with that. And just very quickly, because I think I'll do this in a separate video again, Shakyamuni taught, when he first reached enlightenment, he thought, oh my God, after 7 years of hardships and almost killing myself several times with these different practices, I sat down and I finally get it. And he couldn't wait to tell those few followers he had at the time who were waiting for him to achieve this enlightenment, what enlightenment was like, how to understand enlightenment. And it only took about a week, maybe 2 weeks, depending on what account you read, that Shakyamuni noticed that everyone, all his disciples who wanted to learn from him, were basically like your puppy dog going, huh? What are you talking about? They just weren't ready for it. They hadn't developed the capacity of mind to understand what Shakyamuni was explaining to them. So Shakyamuni stopped. And he thought, I need to teach these people in stages. I need to raise them up, right? Just like you learn the alphabet before you learn how to read, so on and so forth. So this is the Flower Garland's place in the history of the teaching of Buddhism. And the Lotus, of course, is the ultimate, the culminating teaching. But here's the problem, and this is what Nichiren points to constantly in this book, especially in the opening of the eyes. What he's emphasizing is that those even who include the Lotus Sutra in the canon of Buddhism fail to see the revelation in the Tathagata chapter, the 15th chapter, 14th, depends on which version you read. The true lifetime, the lifespan of the Tathagata, the enlightened one, Shakyamuni, Buddha in this case, but all Buddhahood, where it is made plainly clear that Buddha is not a person, but a state of mind that is without time. So it's always been here, always will be here. It only requires of you to study your own mind in order to achieve this clarity. Okay? So, with that in mind, he makes these points. Now, I want you to understand that when he quotes these other leaders and place the Flower Garlands equal with the Lotus Sutra, this is what he's referring to. They fail to see the lifespan chapter. They fail to see the huge difference between the initial teaching and the revelation in the Lotus, where he really nails it down, where it was very flowery and excited and wonderful teaching, the Flower Garland, the Avatamsaka, but it was incomplete because it didn't allow for people to understand what he meant. Where by the time you build on all the previous periods of teachings to the final teachings of the Lotus Sutra, you're now prepared to get it. And that means that the Lotus Sutra, especially the second half of the Lotus Sutra, is without equal because there's where it's nailed down. Not only is it nailed down there, but again, a reference to having to study. You must study everything before it in order to be prepared and understand fully the implication of the Lotus Sutra. See, many Lotus Sutra sects forget and do not do any job or poor job of directing their students to encompass all of the teachings prior to the Lotus Sutra, or at least all of the Mahayana, in order to really understand the depth of the Lotus Sutra. This is critical. And constantly you hear Nichiren talking about provisional versus essential. Provisional in the Lotus Sutra, provisional before the Lotus Sutra, all of it is provisional. They're expedient means. They're meant to lead you through a mental development and a capacity to understand that by the time you get to the essential teachings in the Lotus Sutra, you're floored by the realization. You embody it. You inculcate it. You can read it all day long, but if you have not the facility to understand the words of a foreign language, you can read through it and phonetically play with it all day long, but you won't understand what it says, right? Same thing. All right, going on. The Tripitaka Master Suchuang and the great teacher Tsuen of the Dharma characteristic schools state that the Profound Secret Sutra and the Lotus Sutra both expound the consciousness only doctrine. They date from the third period of the Buddha's teaching and belong to the sixth difficult acts category. Chitsang of the Three Treatises school asserts that the Wisdom Sutra and the Lotus Sutra are different in name for a single entity, two sutras that preach one teaching. The Tripitaka master Shan Wu Wei, Qing Kang Chi, and Pu Kung of the True Word school say the Mahavajracana Sutra and the Lotus Sutra are identical in principle and that both belong to the sixth difficult category. But the Japanese True Word leader, Kobo, says that the Mahavajracana Sutra belongs neither to the sixth difficult nor the nine easy category. The Mahavajracana Sutra, according to him, stands apart from all the sutras preached by Shakyamuni Buddha, since it was preached by the thus come one Mahavajracana, which is an emanation or creation of Shakyamuni's. Wow, how did we get that fucking lost? Oop, I'm so sorry. My apologies. A Buddha of the Dharma body. Likewise, some persons assert that since the Flower Garland Sutra was preached by the thus come one of the reward body, it stands outside the categories of the six difficult and nine easy. Such then are the views put forth by the founder of these four schools. The thousands of students of these schools likewise subscribe to the same views. I must observe sadly that although it would be simple enough to point out the error of the views propounded by these men, if I did so, the people of today would not even look in my direction. So perhaps I've done that. They would go on in their erroneous ways, and in the end would slander me to the ruler of the country and put my life in jeopardy. Nevertheless, our merciful Lord Shakyamuni Buddha, when he faced his end in the grove of sal trees, stated in his dying instructions that we are to, quote, rely on the law and not upon the persons. Not relying upon persons means that when persons of the first, second, third, or fourth ranks preach, even though they are bodhisattvas, such as Universal Worthy and Manjushri, who have attained the stage of near perfect enlightenment, if they do not preach with the sutra in hand, then they are not to be accepted. And I guess I will stop on that note, and we will continue in the next video. I'm not sure. I may edit that little verbal slip of mine, or maybe I'll leave it in as proof that we're all fallible, aren't we? Anyway, no ill feelings. I hope that makes sense to you. We will continue with this immense and densely filled Go Show. As always, thank you so much for participating. Support me if you can. Support this channel. Support what I'm trying to do. Either on Patreon or Cocoscope, or directly to me at tlksylvain@gmail.com, or go to my website, threefoldlotus.com. There are all kinds of buttons there. You can submit to something to my PayPal account and keep me going here. Maybe even get a new computer. Who knows? It could happen. Okay. Thank you. Love you all. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. See you in the next one.